Hi. So in this project, we will be building a NLP model that is trained on text data to highlight the keywords from that data or from that text. So we then prepare our very own website that will be built using the Django framework and hosted on Azure. So let's get started. Now, the first thing that we are going to move forward with is the introduction, building the model, creating a Django project, and hosting on Azure. So basically, we're going to move forward and understand how exactly we're going to move forward in this project and how exactly, what technologies we can use and what methodologies in the NLP domain are we going to use to get our keywords. So, as I told you in this project, the first thing is we're going to get a data set that is the the Republic book written by Plato, right? So we're going to use that as a text data set, and we pre-process the data into a more usable format, and then we will be building the NLP model that would be trained on my text data so that it is able to highlight the keywords from the text. Now, the model creates features out of words to propose the important words which might highlight what the text data showcases or gives you an insight about what might be the topic about, right? So basically, you have, let's say that you have some documents with you and you don't know the topics for those particular documents, but you want to find that out. So, inputting those documents in our model, it would give you keywords for each of the documents so that through those keywords you might be able to understand what this document is about, what it is talking about, uh, and even find out if it is of a particular topic or not, right? We will then prepare our very own website, as I also told you, using the Django framework and host it on Azure. Building the model. Now the name of the model is TF-IDF, right? So that is an acronym for term frequency inverse document frequency, right? Now this is a statistical measure that evaluates how relevant a word is to a document in a collection of documents, right? Now TF-IDF was invented for document search and information retrieval, but as it progressed and evolved, we can even work through it to get keywords out of the documents, which again comes under the information retrieval only. Okay. So it works by increasing proportionally to the number of times a word appears in the document, right? That is the TF part, but it is offset by the number of documents that contains the word, right? So when words that are common in every document, such as this, what, if, right? So rank low, even though they okay. So they even if these are very common in words in document, even then they may get a low rank, um, and that is because the IDF terms offset the number, right? The IDF terms, let's say, in a way normalizes so that words that are appearing a lot of times but hold no value are also kind of uh, pushed back, and the, let's say, rankings of words, right, they're pushed back because again, we know that these words are not important, but for the model it thinks that yeah, these words are occurring a lot of times, these words might be important. So the IDF term, what it does, it pushes back these words in the documents down the ranking system so that the model is more robust and precise, and only those words which are specific to a document, right, which are specific to a document comes up in the ranking, and words which are common in every document comes down in the ranking, right? So now we're going to create a Django project, right? This would be the second part. Now Django is a free and open source web application framework written in Python. It includes advanced functionality like authentication support, management, and admin panels, contact forms, comment boxes, basically any data that could be passed through the front end to back end, right? Then storing files, the file upload system, and more, right? In other words, if you were creating a website from scratch, you would need to develop these components by yourself. By using this framework instead, these components are already built and you just need to configure them properly to match your site. Basically, these functionalities are already built in the form of classes and functions. You just need to import them, call them, and directly use them, right? So this is the last part where we would be hosting our web application, right? Used made by using Django framework onto Azure. So this is the last stage process of building the website or project where we host the new website using the Django platform. We will be using the Linux VM for hosting the website and this is how exactly the virtual server and cloud system work. So Azure provides you with a lot of features, right? And in terms of virtual systems also, they provide a lot of different kinds of virtual machines. So I would be using the Linux for this project. You can move on with using the Windows one or some other OS, right? So with this completed, we would be able to access our website and run the model from anywhere across the internet. So let's move on to the first part, that is building our model. Right? Where we're going to develop our NLP model for extraction of keywords from our text data. So first we will be understanding about the packages or the libraries that we are going to use, right? Now, as you can see in the first block, I'm importing a drive function from google.collab. So this is basically to mount your drive right onto your Google Collaboratory. Basically, and there is no direct connections where the collaboratory can access all the files or folders from your drive, right? So for that, to make that happen, you use this first block code, right? And use the function drive.mount, right? To and just give the path of the folder you want the access to, right? So anything inside that folder, be it subdirectories or files, would be accessible to the collaboratory, and we can call them out, right? Now you can see some of the packages that I have imported, right? The Rail library, LNTK, and some of the uh, sub packages, or I would say classes that I have imported. Then I have NumPy and Pandas. So NLTK is a standard Python library that provides a set of diverse algorithms for NLP. Right. It is one of the most used libraries for NLP and computational linguistics. There is a subset of, right. The process of cleaning unstructured text data so that it can be used to predict, to analyze, or to extract information, all of them are quite accumulated in the NLTK packages and sub packages. Right. So, uh, as you know, the real world text data is unstructured and pretty much inconsistent too. So we need data pre-processing or text pre-processing tools, and to have that, NLTK provides you with a lot of different tools you can use for particular use cases, right? So this library becomes a pretty necessary, uh, I would say, a very necessary tool to use when you're working with text data. And so does data pre-processing becomes a necessary step when working with text data. So actually, when we move forward and look through the sub packages or the classes we have imported, you can see there's a stop word and wordnet lematizer, right? So stop words, let me just give you a brief of what stop words are. Like, so stop words are basically those words which have no particular meaning when we try to extract information through the text data. Or in another way, I would say that stop words are those words which provide very less information when we try to process them and get results. So basically, let's say that there's this sentence, right? And in that sentence, let's say, yeah. So today is a very hot day, right? And I want to extract information like what exactly is this sentence telling me about. So you can see that the sentence was today is a very hot day, and what I can see from the sentence is that the sentence is talking about today. It is talking about how hot it is, right? So the words which I want to have with me as results can be today, can be hot, can be very, which is signifying how hot it is today, right? But words like is, right? This doesn't provide you with much information. Now, in terms of writing and stuff, yeah, it is important. But in terms of getting results or getting some kind of information, it is not so, right? So these words like this, is, and, right, these are words which usually come under stop words because they don't provide much information to you. And usually removing them from your data set also helps in better prediction, better accuracy. Not always, but most of the time. Right. Next is the word net lemmatizer. So lemmatizer, let me just give you a brief of what lemmatizing is, right? Uh, yeah. Now, lemmatization is actually the process of grouping together the inflected forms of a word so they can be analyzed as a single item, right? Identified by a word lemma. Basically, words like is, been, was, right? These are actually just past perfect, present tense, past tense, future tense of a single word, of a single thing, right? So what lemmatizer do is that let's say there are two, three sentences having is or was. What it is going to do is going to push it back to the present form of the word or the past form or the future form, whatever you want. You can put that as a parameter, but it just pushes back. And what this does is that this reduces the vocabulary for us, which makes computation process a little easier. Now, if there were words like is and was, these are two different things, right? But what lematizer would do is that it would keep is as is, then was would be again converted to is, right? So this is what lemmatizers do. And sometimes what lemmatizers do is that they do not change the form of the word, but they just kind of delete the part of the word to see if it becomes the present, if it becomes the present form or not, if we're talking about future forms, right? Like will. So this is what lemmatizers do. You can even read more about it because lemmatizers, there are different kind of lemmatizers. They produce different results too, right? So you can see if this one was the best lemmatizer I could use, or you could use some lemmatizer which should work even better with our data set. So next is the NumPy and Pandas, right? So NumPy, which stands for numerical Python, is a library consisting of multidimensional arrays and objects and a collection of routines for processing those arrays, right? So using NumPy, mathematical and logical operations on arrays can be performed efficiently and at a very fast rate, right? Since most of the things working under hood, the NumPy library is actually written in C, C++. They are pretty fast languages, right? And even the processing power is very fast. So that is that. Now, the last is the pandas library. Again, this is for data, holding the data, manipulating the data, or if you want to showcase your data. Pandas library is pretty good, and it provides you with a lot of, I would say, it provides you with a lot of features where you can merge your data, where you can separate out your data, work through row by row, work through all rows, work through column wise, right? So all of that is provided by pandas library when working on a data set. So I've just read my data set into a variable, right? And you can see the Okay, you can see the shape here, that is 7241. So basically these are the number of rows, then these are the number of columns we have. So now you can see that I've called these top words. Okay, the thing is, since NLP is so robust and vast and used by a lot of people, they have even given you the options of different languages to work with, right? So I'm calling out these top words from the English language, and I've used a set so that I get unique things. And then I've just stored that in stop words. Then I've created a list of some of the words that might be or can be labeled as stop words, right? Just went through three or four of the top data, right? Uh, these are pretty big data. So through I went through that and saw that some of them can be, used or labeled as stop words. So I just appended that into the stop word list, right? Now you can see that I've used union because we are using set here. And then I just converted that to list because it's easier to manipulate lists. Then I've just created a pre-processing function, right? The first thing I'm doing is lowercasing each and every text data I get. Then this is to remove unwanted things from my data set. There can be, okay, these are actually basically regex expressions. You can read more about it. But these are basically trying to remove ampersand. These are basically trying to remove extra space and stuff like that. And you can see that I've just given this basic to remove tags and all, because this dataset holds a lot of tags, this dataset holds a lot of references, so I've removed that. So next is the removing special characters and digits. So this W basically means that get me anything that is text data characters, right? And this slash D is removing anything that is not numbers. Okay. Then what I'm doing is, since all of these are strings, right? I have my text data. I'm just splitting that up into words. Basically, let's say that I have a string which is today is very hot. So text.split would give me a list having today is very hot. So 4 words, right? Then I'm checking for if this list of words have any stop words or not. Like in my previous example, we had a stop word that is. So it would remove the is and then provide me with a list of 3 words that is today very hot. Okay, so that is that. Then I'm looking for so I'm looking for even text which has less than 3 words, 4 words, because these are pretty small words, sorry, small sentences or text data. And if you're having a data of 10 words, 15 words, would you want to extract keywords from that? I mean, these are so less words, you can even probably read those sentences in what, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and get to know what the text data is talking about. So I've removed that. You can even increase that value to 15, 20, 50, um, just to have a data set which is very large and you're trying to find keywords in that. Okay. Last is the lemmatization, right? So I'm using the word net lemmatizer and I'm going through each and every word in my sentence and then lemmatizing that. So the next thing is what I'm doing is joining each and every sentence, right? Joining each and every sentence with each other so that I get a big data set uh, with me. Okay. So you can see that I've started to use my pre-processing data, function. So what I've done is I've used apply function, right, which works with data frames or series. And what apply function does is that uh, it takes in a function and then it makes, I would say, it performs that function onto each and every row. Basically, if you have, like we have 7,241 rows, right? So on each and every row, this function is going to work. And then let's say the input was some string, it would work and work on each and every row, and then return back the, I would say, the cleaned string, and that would be then again saved into my uh, column onto which we have used our apply function. So column usually apply functions work when you want to manipulate something in a particular column or columns, but want to go through each and every row, right? So this is used for that, and you can see that I have saved that in my docs variable, and using the docs.head, head is just to print out the first n values, and similarly you can even use the dot tail function. It is used to print the last n values, and you can even give the parameter here as 10 or 20. It would provide you with 20 first 20 values. Since we haven't given anything here, it takes 5 as default and gives you the first 5 values. Right. So now we move forward to using TF-IDF. Okay, so I would cover this in the next part because this is the most important part in the whole project, and understanding this is very important, right? Because this is how we're trying to convert our text data into numerical features first, so that we are able to get our keyword extraction working, right? So, a library, right? First, you can yeah, you can see that this is here count vectorizer. This is what we're going to use to create the TF, and then we have the TF IDF transformer, which provides us with the exact TF values, or we can use the IDF. So you put that here, right? Use IDF is equal to true. So it converts into TF and then works with the IDF part. Now I'm going to tell you what exactly is happening in both of these processes. But first, this was something that I didn't share with you in the last video, but the process of breaking down the text data, right? When we were using the split function, on the text data, which would give me a list of words from my string, right? So breaking down the text data, right, into individual words like uh, individual words, which are usually called tokens, or maybe into individual characters, is known as tokenization. Okay, this is the like the first step usually people go with in text analytics. Now, when text data is split into individual words, it is known as word tokenization, right? And usually there are, I would say, functions created by the user or pre-built functions from NLTK or even from other packages which you can use to get your word or tokens from your text data, but we just use the split function only because later down the line we were going to use the limitizer, and limitizer also have this functionality of breaking I would say sentences into words, right? So this was something that I wanted to tell you about, right? Usually people move forward with either word tokenizations, right, using the functions like word tokenize, right? Or they would move forward with lemmatization using functions like word lematize, yeah, word net lematizer, right? So now what exactly is TF-IDF? I've just given a brief of what is happening here, right? Now, as I told you, it is a statistical measure that evaluates how relevant a word is. Now, this is actually done by multiplying two metrics: how many times a word appears in a document, and the inverse document frequency of the word across the set of documents. Okay, this might not have made it a it might not have made it very clear what exactly is happening, or you might not have able to understand that. So I would come on to this in just a minute, because I want to specify you why exactly are we using this, right? Why not something other? So TF-IDF was actually invented for document search and information retrieval. and it works with increasing the number of times a word has appeared in a document, and then is offset by the number of the number of words that document contains. Right. Now let's talk about the two metrics here. Right, let me explain what these are and what is happening here. So the first is term frequency, TF. Now, term frequency of a word in a document is basically like we're having several ways of calculating, and let's say that there are 1000 words, right? There are 1000 words in my document, and the particular word said, right, SAID, appears 10 times in that document. So we simply take the raw count of instances of a word appearing in the document, and that becomes our term frequency. So when I say the term frequency of said is 10, that means that in that document of 1000 words, 10 words are said. Okay. Then we talk about the inverse document frequency, IDF. Now, the inverse document frequency of a word across a set of document means how common or rare a word is in the entire document set. The closer it is to zero, the more common a word is, right? Now, let me tell you, uh, this is an inverse value we are taking. So if it is reaching 1, this means that the denominator is uh, very small, right? Because 1 upon 10 and 1 upon 1000, you know which one would be closer to 0, right? So we have the 1 upon the number of words we have in the document, right? Uh, so the bigger the value is in the denominator, the smaller the whole value would be, and it would be closer to 0. So that is why we are saying when the value is closer to 0 for IDF, the word is even more common, right? Now this metric can be calculated by taking the total number of documents, dividing it by the number of documents that contains a specific word. So basically, let's say that I had one document only and it had the word said. So the TF IDF, right? The IDF part would be 1 upon 10, right? Now let's say that I have two documents, and in the first document there were only 10 instances of said, and in the second document there were 50 instances of said. So now my IDF would be 1 plus 1 upon 10 plus 50, right? That would be 2 upon 60, 1 upon 30. So that is how exactly you're calculating the IDF. And now you can see that in the first part, the value was 0.1 for the IDF. But in the second part, the value turns out to be 0.03, yeah, somewhere close to that. So you can see that the value has now reached a little closer to 0, which is telling me that this word has become a common occurrence in my documents, right? So this is how exactly things are going with TF-IDF. But let me explain you what exactly count vectorizer is doing. Okay. Now you can see that I have some parameters in my count vectorizer, and the first you can see is the max df, which is the value where you have to ignore words that appears 85% of the time in documents, right? So the value is 0.85. Then we have the max feature, which is basically the size of the vocabulary you want to have. Now let me tell you, the greater the vocabulary is, the more enriched the vocabulary is, the better your results would be. Now, due to the constraints of server, I had to have very less features with me, because as you increase on the feature, your count vectorization object becomes larger and larger, and it takes more time to load your object when you would be working on your website, right? And at one point, the count vectorizer actually became much more larger than the RAM could withhold. So I had to uh, push it to a smaller value, right? Now we have the n-gram ranges, which is basically telling the count vectorizer to build n-grams of one, right? Of count one, of count two, of count three. So when we talk about n-grams are basically collection of tokens. So n-gram of one would be just one token, n-gram of two would be two tokens, uh, like simultaneously occurring two tokens, and then n-gram of three would be similar but with three tokens, right? Now, Count Vectorizer is a great tool provided by sklearn. Now, it is used to transform a given text into vectors on the basis of the frequency of each word that occurs in the entire text. So basically, we're getting the TF part here. Now, this is helpful when we have multiple text data with us and we wish to convert each word inside the text into vectors so that we can move forward with further analysis. Right, so this is what Count Vectorizer is doing, providing me with a vectorized form of my text data so that I can move forward and perform even more, let's say, feature engineering or directly move forward with my model creation. Right, now the next thing is the TF IDF transform. So this function or class, yeah, this would be the class. So this class transforms a count matrix that was again provided to us by the count vectorizer to a normalized TF or TF IDF representation. And as you can see, I told you use IDF means we would get the IDF part also, which becomes the offset to remove common words from our ranking list. When I say ranking list, that just means that I have a list of words which are ranked on the basis of how uh, good they are in terms of explaining what is happening in the document, right? So common words are stripped down or pushed down to lower ranks because again these are common words. These are not telling us specifically what exactly this document is talking about, right? Okay, so the second thing is smooth IDF, right? And if it is set to true, what happens is that sometimes there are words which are not in your data set but might come when you're testing your model, right? So in that way, when we talk about IDF, we had the number of documents upon the number of times the word has occurred in all the documents. But if the word is new, then it means that it hasn't occurred in our training data set. So the value would become zero and then the denominator would become zero. So what smooth IDF does is that it adds on a constant one to the numerator and the denominator of the IDF so that we don't get a zero division error. Okay, so that is that. And once I have trained them, right, use the function fit for both of these, right? So I can just save my objects of count vectorizer and TF-IDF transformer. So I've just saved them here using the pickle library. And why I've saved them here? Because these are again going to be used when we are testing our model and when we are using our website to get the keywords, right? So I've just created the functions to extract information and showcase them in a very clean and understandable manner, right? So what is happening is there, I've just created a sort coup function. Okay, I haven't created this specifically, but this was taken from somewhere. Okay, so this is helping me in getting me the tuples of data and their TF-IDF values so that I can understand which data was to be showcased to the user to tell them that yeah, these are the keywords and how important they are using the TF-IDF. Then I have the extract top n from vectors. This is again basically the in the ranking list of words, the top n words that I want to show. I have just given a default value of 10 here, right? So you can see that from my sorted items, which is again a parameter here. I'm taking the top in values, and through the top in values, I'm taking the feature name and the score of the. Now score simply explains the IDF, TF IDF values. And okay, yeah, so I missed the feature name, I think. Okay, I have not. Yeah. Okay, so let me also show you the feature names. Yeah, here you can see that the feature names, I've just saved that in a variable, and you can see that I have taken 4 feature names. So features are basically the vocabulary that you created through the CV uh, count vectorizer, right? So that is what features mean. So through the feature names, I'm getting the IDX. This is just taking the index, right, and giving me the feature name, which is basically the word. So I'm getting the word here, then I'm getting my score here, TF-IDF score, which is again rounded to 3 because the score values are very small. Because this data set was big, and if working with even bigger data set, you would get even smaller values. Okay. Then I'm just creating a tuple. Okay, not exactly a tuple, but a dictionary, right? Yeah, a dictionary. I created a tuple before, it didn't work really well. But I'm creating a dictionary where my feature name, basically the word, is the key and the score is the value. Okay, and then just returning the result, which is my dictionary. So I have to also save my feature names because this is again going to be used when testing. Then I have my final, I would say the final function, which is transforming my data so that I can send it to my sort ku function. I'm getting my tuple of uh, right, which is again my matrix data and the values for them. Then uh, I'm sending that information to my top in vector. Again, I have input 10, you can get 20, you can get 5, you can get 2, right? So it is taking the feature names, taking the sorted items. Through the sorted items, it is understanding which values are the top values, and those values are then mapped with feature names to see what words were actually the. Basically, we are getting a vector, and I'm trying to see this vector corresponds to which word exactly, right? So that is what was happening here when we use the sorted items and the feature names, right? So I'm just finding out which vector corresponds to which word, and then I'm sending those words in the descending order of my TF-IDF values, right? So I'm returning them in the keywords variable. So what I've taken is that from my training data set only, I've taken a very large text data. You can see this is like this is really large, right? So what I've done is now I've just input that in my get keywords text, right? You can see that I've created this here. These two are basically, this is the first thing I made. Then this was to get you know to get the results in a cleaner format. These are doing the same thing, right? So if I am working and using the get keywords text and just inputting my text data, you can see that in the keywords which I stored here, I'm getting my words and the TF-IDF values. No, one, you won't get one, but basically the closer to one, the more important that word is for the particular document. Okay, so that is that. And yeah, this was again just to make things in a little more clean and understandable manner. You can see that this was the title, and we had abstract, we had body, right? These were the two. Not even that, we had extract, we had body, we had uh, references, and all of that had text data in it. And then the keywords from this are what you can see here, the 10 keywords here, right? So this was just to do things in a more cleanable and understandable manner. But yeah, we can directly use the get keyword text data and just input the uh, text data in here, and we can get the keywords and even their TF-IDF values. So with this, we have completed the first part where we are going to build the model. As you can see, we have already developed the model. It's working pretty fine. Now we are going to move forward and start with the second part, right? Start with the second part. This would be the second part of our project where we're going to use the Django framework, build our Django website, and lastly, mount our model, which we built in the last part here, and test our website. So before we move forward, let's first understand what Django is, what exactly does it provide, and how do we configure it. Right? So Django is a free and open source web application framework written in Python. Now, a framework is nothing more than a collection of modules that makes development easier. They are grouped together and allows you to create applications or website from an existing source instead from scratch. So this is how even when we are designing a website, a single person can still handle advanced functionalities like authentication support, management, uh, transfer of data, retrieval of data, files, reports, and more. And basically, in other words, if you were to create a website from scratch, you would need a lot of you need to write a lot of code to handle these functionalities, which I just now said, and even set up your code to work properly with the front end, with the databases. You have to set up the connections to handle those connections too, right? But Django provides you with a mechanism which handles this automatically. You just have to configure them to make Django understand how exactly do you want them to be handled, right? So this is why I'm going with the Django framework and why it is so easy to work with it also. Now Django has a model template views architectural system that keeps in mind the requirements of front-end and database management for a developer, just like I said. Right. So basically, I would talk more about this architectural system. Right. When we talk about models, this is nothing but the handling and development of databases. Right. How do you want your tables to be made? What exactly should be there? If you want to keep some constraints or not? If you have made updates or you want to remove those tables or not? Right. All of that is handled through models and the connections that Django creates with the external databases. Then we talk about the templates. Now, templates is again nothing but your front end that is served to the user so that he understands or he is visually able to see what exactly is happening on your website. Right. Lastly, views. So views is let's just say views is the backend implementation of your website where all the things processing of data, retrieval of data, storing of data, all of that is happening there. Now moving forward, let's first see how to instantiate a Django project, right? So I've created a list of steps that you can, right? You can look through and perform to create your own Django app or just to configure and start this one, right? So this code would be provided to you. If you want to create your own project, then you might wanna uh, go through each of every one of these. Right? Basically, the first thing that you would need to do is create a virtual environment. Right? Create a virtual environment, and through PyCharm, what you can do is just go to Files, then click on Settings. Right? In the settings part, a pop-up would open, right, like this. Then you can just go to your project. You would see a project interpreter. Inside the interpreter, you can click on Settings, and you can click on Add. Once you click on Add, it would ask you the location where you want to save your virtual environment and the base interpreter. I'm using 3.76. 7.6, right? The Python version. So you can create a new one, or you can just click on this and find your existing environment ready. So I've already created that. So once you have done that, you can just click on apply and it would load your virtual environment. And also you can see in my terminal, you can see the virtual environment is now active. Right. So once you have done that, now if you were to just configure, then the next thing that you need to do is go inside the my site directory. So that would be basically where your project is stored, and then inside your my site directory, then run this command here. Install -r requirements.txt. So -r is just a flag, which is basically asking pip to install all the requirements, basically all the packages and dependencies that are listed in your requirements.txt. So if you go to your, if you go to the requirement.txt, you can see all the packages and their versions, right? So you can just, pip just goes through each and every one and starts installing them on your virtual environment. Okay. So once you have also done this, right. So once you have already done this, the next command to run would be python manage.py migrate. Now this is a Django specific command which basically asks Django to create all the tables that you need to create or that is defined by the user so that we can later on store or retrieve values from it, right? So this is the command for that. And even if you're just using the base code that Django provides, even then there are some of the tables that Django pre-builds or is required to be pre-built so that Django can properly function. And after that, if you have created some more tables, right, for yourself, then all of those tables would be created. Then the last command is python manage.py run server. So this is to start a basically this is to host your website on your local machine, right, at a local server and see how exactly is your website is functioning. Is it working in a way that you want, or is it showing some errors? So all of that can be seen through here. Now, if you were to create a new Django project, then again, first thing is to create a virtual environment. Then the next thing is to install Django version, any version that you would like. So just write pip install Django is equal to then the version. So once you have done that, then you would run the command Django admin start project and the name of the project. So I have kept that as my site. So you can see actually when you run this command, this my site directory will be instantiated inside a my site directory would be shown, inside which you can see all the configurational files are present here, right? So this is the project directories. Now, next thing is you would create an app. So to create an app, you would cd into the project, again go into your my site directory where manage.py file is present, and run the command python manage.py start app, then the name of the app, which I have kept as polls. So this directory here will be created inside which you can see some of the files, not all of the files because I have imported some of them, right? So you would see those there. Now, the difference between a project and an app is that apps are built to integrate certain functionalities onto your website, but the project file or project folder is created to configure how exactly your website is to be run, or how which external applications are to be connected with Django, how are they going to be connected, how are they going to be handled. All of that is handled through the project files or project directory. So when I talk about project directory, that is the my site directory here. You can see the settings.py, vsgi.py, asgi.py, right? Then you have your polls, which is your app to create or to integrate additional functionalities, right? So this is what uh, the Django framework is all about. Well, not all about, but yeah, if we are to start with the project, this is what all you would need to know. And the next thing is Once you have created, or if you're using a pre-existing source code, then the first thing is to go to your settings.py file. Again, this is inside the my site directory here, right? So here you have a lot of settings to handle a lot of different aspects in Django. You have your allowed host here, which is basically who can connect to your Django application. Then you have installed apps, and you can see that there are some pre-existing apps that are created by Django. So these apps are what I was talking about before, where we were able to have a existing base of code which was handling functionalities like file support, which was handling functionalities like authentications, right? So these are the apps there. Then this is what we created ourselves. If we wanted additional functionalities, right? So we have created this ourselves to have that functionality. Then we have middlewares. So Django is also handling middlewares for you, right? Then we have templates. So the this is the code where templates or the front end part is being handled and connected to your Django application. Then we have databases too. So Django already provides you with an SQLite 3 pre built database which you can use, right? If you don't want to use this, you can also put different, I would say, different configurations here to connect your external applications like MySQL or Postgres to your Django application so that they stay connected and retrieval and storing of information is smooth, right? And then we also have some other configurations or settings that you can change as to your liking, right? So this is a very important file, I would say, which is handling or is used to configure and understand how exactly your Django application should work. Then now let's go to the application. Sorry, the app. Right. So, okay, so I'm gonna talk about the apps and how does it bring additional functionalities to your Django application in the next video. Just to know, we can create a number of apps which can have different functionalities, which can even perform and have links on each other, right? All of that can be done. And usually people do create different apps which are holding different kinds of purposes for your application. Like there can be an app for handling files, there can be an app for doing data analysis on data sets, there can be an app on storing that data so that the previous app can retrieve that data and perform the analysis. Right? So this is how exactly the application or the apps are working. They can work independently, they can work on inventory of users. Right? So the last thing before I end this video is to talk about the .env package. Right? So there is a Python dash .env package which basically handles your sensitive data. So how does it handle your sensitive data? You create you create some .env file which you can see there, and you can see my sensitive data right here. Well, anyway, I guess this is thing, and even with the key, you will need to have a lot of expertise to read and out of Python. But anyway, so you store all your sensitive data in your secret, sorry, in your .env file, and what you do is you call this environment function, get your secret data, right, through this guy. Basically, you call your OS environment, but then you call your key, and this when you do this, the value which was stored in your system variable would be stored there. So what happens is that you put your sensitive data in your .env file, you run your code, and all of that sensitive information is now stored in your system variable. Right? But yeah, as stored as they are stored as system variable,
And then what you can do is you can just delete the .env file. The next time that you run your code, the the load.env function and load.env function will call these data from these variable directly, not from your .env file. So that way nobody will be able to access your sensitive information unless he or she was able to get into your system and was able to access your system, which is running very hard system. Right? So again, for my IP address also, I have put that into the body file and just put them into the system. So those system data is now directly called from my system. Right? So this is very important to do. So if you want to have your file secured and less vulnerable, everything. So I'm going to stop this video and we will start with.
So in this video, we are going to start with how the architectural system works in the Django framework, right? We talked about views, model, and templates. So right now we won't be using the models part. That is because we are not trying to store any data anywhere or retrieve information from anywhere, right? So we are going to work with views and templates only. Now, how exactly do they work, right? So the thing is, we have a templates folder right here, which has my index.html. So this is the page I'm going to serve to my user once he hits a particular URL. Then what is happening exactly here? You can see that I have my views and I have my index.html. So I have my views part, I have my templates part right here. So the thing is, Django works on classes and functions. You can either build a class or you can either build a function to serve front end to your users. As you can see here, I have created a handler function which is taking a request parameter, right? Then you can see here that it is returning another function which is taking a request parameter, but it is also taking index page as my parameter 2 and response as my parameter 3, right? So what is happening is that a particular function renders a particular page on your front end, right? And you can see that down, if we go down, we have other functions too, but neither of them are taking any parameter as your request. So basically, if a function has request as its parameter, the Django framework understands that yeah, this function is responsible to serve a particular page, right? Now we know how the pages are being served. You call a function, you pass in the particular page as a return, and that return also has a render function. So basically you are returning whatever this render function is uh, returning, right? Because this function is taking parameters, it is going to process and it is going to return something. Then this function will take that output and also return that, right? So this is how exactly, now you know that the function is responsible to serve the page, but how exactly is the function understanding that on which URL I have to serve which page, right? Because that is not specified anywhere here. And you can see another thing, that in my script here, I have nowhere called this handler function, right? So how is this getting instantiated even? So the thing is, so the thing is, we create a urls.py file, right? We have a urls.py file where I map on which URL, which function has to be loaded. So you can see that on my path, if I go to home, then handler function is to be called. Then in views, it understands that, oh, the person has gone to the home URL. So I have to run the handler function. Then handler function understands that, oh, somebody called me. Now I have to return the output of this render function. Then render understands, oh, I have been called, so I have to serve the HTML page. So that is how once you go on your URL, this page is going to be served to you so that you can see see this page on your browser. Now, what is this response thing? So what happens is that we know that there is a to and fro of information from the front end and back end, right? When I talk about front end, back end, this is basically from the pages to my back end in the views. So if I have a form in my front end, like you can see here, I have a form, right? I have created a form which is taking a input. Then once I click on submit, that data is passed to my backend through the through this block of code, right? I'm taking the request method as post and then the input name. And if I really have some data passed down through front end, then it would be stored here, right? So this is how I was able to take the data from front end to back end. But how do I reverse this action to move from back end to front end? Now that is done through the response. Basically, we create a context dictionary. As you can see, this is a dictionary where I put in the keys and the values are my data that I have to send to the front end, right? So this is how we have the to and fro of information from backend and front end. So let me just specify here that we have taken an input here, right? We have taken an input here, and you can see the name is name. Okay, not exactly the best name, but yeah. And here you can see that from the post dictionary, I'm taking the name parameter, name key, and whatever value it has, it would be stored in the sequence variable. Now the next thing you can see is that I am sending that sequence to get keywords text. Right, this was created in the first part to get my keywords extracted from my data set or from my text data, right? So that is, this was pretty much of of what should I say? Yeah, a copy paste thing, right? Because I had already created when I was trying to test if the model I had created was working properly or not, right? So you can see that I have also loaded my TF IDF model and my feature names, right, to get the values, because the transformer and the vectors I get are then sorted in descending order. They are given to me in the format of data, right? And that data is again only a vectorized format, basically a vector of having a lot of numbers in them. So I have to map it again to my feature names. Feature names are nothing but words. So I have to map them to see which words are actually the keywords from my text data. So I do need this, and again I do need this. Now you can see, yeah, this was again the same thing. Again the same thing what we are trying to do in the first part. But the only thing different here is that you cannot see the count vectorizer, right? We haven't called that anywhere. Okay, so you can see that there is the count vectorizer here. And if you go back to the top, you can see I've imported the count vectorizer from my sustain.py file. So if we go to the sustain.py file, right? So Django also helps you in providing uh, a way to configure if you want to use a cache system, right? Now there are multiple ways you can use cache system. There are different uh, there are different cache systems provided by Django also. So if we go back to our settings.py file, okay, okay, not exactly here, but in our sustain.py file, right, we import the cache system from django.co.cache. And what we do is we create a cache system where the would be count vectorizer would be instantiated. So what happens is that once you run your Django project for the first time, it would see if the count vectorizer is present or not. If not, then we would go into this if block and we would load the count vectorizer into the application, and then we would tell that you have to store this count vectorizer in the cache. So what happens is that the next time you reload your whole system, you don't have to again load the count vectorizer into the variable here, it would be stored in cache and would be called from the cache. Because what happens is that in views, if you reload all of the functions that were, let's say that you were on home URL and you reloaded, then this handler function will again call itself and start working. So if you have, let's say, if you have loaded something here, then it would reload. Let's say if you loaded a pickle file here, then once you reload on the browser, the model would again be instantiated and set into a variable, and then your code would start working again. But what happens through this is that it takes a lot of time, because if you're reloading again and again, then your model, the pickle file, is getting loaded again and again. So that takes time. So what we have done is we have created a cache system so that it loads only once, and then you can call it again and again. Or you can reload on your browser again and again, and it would stay loaded only, right? So that is what I have done for this. So let's say that you have completed your code, you have set all the functionalities. Now you want to test it if it is working properly or not, right? So what you do is just inside the my site directory where your manage.py file is present, you type in the command python manage.py. Oh yeah, I left out the dot. Then run server. Okay, just hit enter. Then it is going to check for it is going to perform a check, and it is going to see if each and everything is working as it should be. Then once it completes its check, it performs a localhost URL to you, and in that URL you can just go to that URL, right? You can see that Django version 3.2 started development server at here. So this is the localhost URL right here, and if you click on this, then it would take you to your default browsers. And yeah, so you can see that there is no page, right? Page not found. Why is this happening? So you can see that in your URLs you can see there's only two pages, admin and, sorry, there's only two URLs, sorry, admin and home. So let's say that I go to the home, right? So you see, you can see the page is now loaded. So what happened? Basically, my URL was mapped to a particular function, and the localhost URL, which is this, was not mapped to anything. So no page was rendered, right? But as I told you, the home was mapped to a particular function. So that particular function worked and rendered the specific page. Now let's say that I need to, yeah, so this is a very big, if you just go to the, yeah, you can see that this is a very big uh, data, text data I have. So let's just click on submit and see what happens here. So right now, since no data was sent, it is telling me that no data is sent. Then if I click on submit, it works and it tells me the keywords. So right now I've only kept the keywords, not the ID, IT, TF, IDF, uh, TF, IDF values here. But if you want, you can have that too. Okay. So this is how our Django application was created. Now, see, when we talk about apps, right, they are used to build additional functionality. Now, Django won't provide you a specific uh, code base where you can load pre-existing pickle files, right? So we needed that additional functionality with us. So we created an app for ourselves and set that app up according to our wishes by writing code in it, right? So we were pretty easily able to have a code base, append our code in it, and start working with it, right? So this is how Django framework works exactly and why it is so helpful to use them. And as you can see now, our site is pretty much ready. We send in the data, we get the keywords out of them too, right? So now the last part would be to host this website onto Azure, right? So I would be ending this video right now, and moving forward, I would be talking about some of the terms that you need to know when you would be hosting your website on Azure, or in fact any of the hosting platforms like AWS or Google Cloud, right? And I would also be telling you about some of the softwares that you would need to install onto your local machine so that the process of hosting the website becomes easy, right? So bye guys, I would see you in the next video. Hi guys. So in this video, we are going to start with the third step, and this would be last in our project. That would be hosting our website onto Azure. Right. So Microsoft Azure, like any other hosting platforms, provides you with different types of VMs, that are virtual machines, onto which you can host your website with a very less expensive and very efficient way. Okay. Now, before we move forward, let me just tell you some of the features of Azure and the VMs they provide and why you would need to know them, because they provide a lot of different kinds of virtual machines for very specific use case, for very general purpose use case, and you would, it would be better if you know which one is to be the VM you want to use. So virtual computing environments that you know, maybe also know as instances, now they have pre-configured templates in your instance known as machine images, right? And these are the packages and the bits that you would need in your server so that it is operating as to your requirements. Like your server needs to have an operating system, maybe additional software. So all of that is prepared as an machine image and set in your virtual machine. Now, as I told you before, they come in various configurations of CPU, memory, storage, and even network capacity in your instance or your virtual machines. They provide you with login information which are secure using the key pairs which we are going to create just now after we start with the initiating of a virtual machine. They provide you with temporary storage on your VM, or they provide you external storage for your VM that is connected to your VM, right? They provide you with, I would say, functionalities like hibernate, go to sleep kind of thing, or like simply terminate or delete your VM, right? So they provide you with all the infrastructure. You just need to set them up, and anybody across the internet would be able to access your website through a particular IP address, through a particular URL, right? Yeah. So they also provide you with firewall system. Again, these are obvious things because again, they need to have some kind of security so that your code or anything that you're hosting is not accessed by third party, right? So let's start with the VM, creation of a VM. So what you do is, this is your dashboard, right? Once you log into your Azure account, it would ask you, or it would show you a button to go to the portal. Just click on that. It would uh, redirect you to your dashboard where you can see Azure services that they provide. Now I have the free trial version going right now, and I'm going to use the free trial virtual machines too. But if you're creating an application that requires extensive memory or that requires extensive CPU power, then you can move forward with other resources too. And Azure provides you with a 12-month free trial and provides you with certain, I would say, provide you with certain credits too. You can use that, and you can even use the paid versions for free, at least in that 12-month stature. Okay, so now you can just click on virtual machine from here, or you can just click on the left panel and go to your virtual machines here. Anyways, fine. And here it would list out all the virtual machines that you have created. You can see that there's a free trial version right here, but you can see that I have created a virtual machine for myself in so that I could host my website. Now, okay, it gives you information about your local, okay, not local, but your virtual machine. And if you need to create a new one, you just click here, click on virtual machine. It also provides you with an specification where you might want to create a virtual machine, but which might be pre-configured using your previous ways of creating, right? Because you might want to go with an Linux, you might want to go with a Windows, so it would store in those categories which you classified last time for a particular virtual machine, and then use that to create a new one for you. So you can use the free trial version, or you can create another one as your subscription part. Then you can use the resource group made before, or you can just use the new, just let them create a new resource group for you. It's better to create a new one for yourself, right? Then just type in the virtual machine name. Let's say it's keywords 2. Okay. Then the region where I want this to be, Central India only. Then availability options, you can change that, it provides you, but for me, yeah, it's pretty much, even if they provide me with the standard one, that's pretty good. Then the image, right? I was talking about machine images, so that is what I was talking about here. So you can see that I have selected the Ubuntu. It has pre-selected the Ubuntu, but you can click on this and see the marketplace stores or lists out all the images that you can use. There's an Oracle Linux, there's just there's Red Hat, there's Debian, there's Windows servers, right? You can click on all images to see all of them. I'm just using the Ubuntu server 20.04, right? And this also comes in free tiers, so another reason why I'm using this. Anyways, then is the size, the capacity of your uh, virtual machine. So if you click on see all sizes, right? So if you click on see all sizes, it will load all the, yeah, you can see the virtual. So you can see it has been listed in the terms of most used by Azure users. We have DS1, which has 1 vCPU, 3.5 gig of RAM, 4 GB of data disks, right? Max IOPS input output, then temporary storage. So we would be using the free tier one, which is B1S. This is again, as you can see, the family's general purpose. So most people use general purpose one, and uh, I would recommend you to go for this if you are working with normal applications like just loading your deep learning model, maybe just loading your machine learning model, maybe. But if you have extensive use like image processing and stuff like that, I would recommend to go for a higher RAM plus for a higher CPU. Number of CPU should be more and stuff like that. So you can see that B1S has 1 vCPU, has 1 gig of RAM, data disk is 2, and okay, these are not exactly something that you would want to look for right now. So you can just click on this and then click on select, and it has redirected us back to the page. Then, yeah, here it is important that you go for SSH public key rather than the password one, and I will tell you later why. Now you can uh, take in any username. By default, it would provide you as your user. Remember whatever you have put here. Then it would ask you to create a new generate a new key pair. So you can use existing one, right? You can use existing key stored in Azure, but I would recommend you to go for a generate new key pair. So just click on that, name that anything, then yeah, keep all of these settings as it is, then click on next. Now in next, it again gives you what type of disks you want to use. Premium SSD, standard HDD. So I would ask you to just use the premium SSD only, because again, this provides you with a faster load upload time. Okay, yeah, you can just click on next. So in the previous page, there was an option if you want to use an existing disk that was set up for some other VM. So if you want to use one disk for 2-3 VMs, you can do that in the last part of the previous page. Again, I would ask you to just let it be and create new ones for the new VM you have created. But if you think that things are becoming more cluttered, you want to use one subnet, you want to use one subnet for or one VPC for all the VMs that you created, you can just change that and tell them that use this group because this was created before and it has been used by other VMs also, right? So then you won't have to configure each and every group, network group. So, but for this video, I'm just going to create a new one so that I can tell you how do you configure your network groups and the rules. Then, yeah. Okay, then it asks for next to go to advanced. You can go to advanced or you can just simply click on review and create. Mostly you need to configure basic disk, sometimes networking. These are high level stuffs people usually who are handling a lot of machines or are in the DevOps, they would go with this and try to keep things as clear and simple as possible. So that is why you might want to use management advanced tags uh, to classify which VM is used for what, right? So you can just go and click on review and create. So it would take you to the last part, and here it is going to give a review of all of the settings that you had set up here, and it would give you the subscriptions, prices for them. Then you can see here, right, the basics and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, you can just click on create. So once you click on create, this is going to, yeah, once you click on create, this is going to give you a pop-up of downloading a key pair, right? So you need to see if the key pair is in RSA format, and then just click on the I would say you can just click on the download key pair and save it in a place where you can access it, because that is a very important file which would help us to log in into our virtual machine, which would help us to transfer our data into the virtual machine, right? So they are very important. So just do that, click on create and it would show you the pop-up. Then just click on download key pair and then it would create your instance, right? So I'm just not going to create the instance right now, and because I have already created one. So then it would show you that it is instantiated the process, and then it has deployed a virtual machine for you. And then you can go back to your virtual machines here. From here, you can just scroll back and go to the virtual machines. I can just type the virtual machines here and click on this. You will again redirected to this page and your virtual machine would be shown here, right? So this is that. So you can just verify this. Then what you can do is go back to all resources, and in all resources see the type, and in virtual machines just click on virtual machines, and then it would give you more information about your virtual machine, right? Then yeah, here you can see that there's a public IP address given and the IPv4 address. Okay, right. So there's the public IP address here. There's even IPv6 address, though that is not defined right now. Then we have the operating system as Linux, the plan, which is the OS. Then we have the size, the disks, right? So by default, when you're using the Ubuntu, they give you a 30 GB of disk size, where you can use that to store your uh, additional files or to handle additional data. Right, so this is that. So once you have created this, your virtual machine is up and running. So let's now, focus some on, actually, let's now focus on some of the terms that you should know about before we move forward. So the first is the public DNS. Public DNS is basically domain name system, which means that it lets you map your URLs to specific IPs of servers, right? Basically, it means that let's say we want to go to www.example.com on the web. What happens there is that a tree structure is defined on the web where it searches for example.com in its node. When it founds the example.com there, it sees what IP address is stored or mapped for this URL. Then it specifies the IP address, and through that IP address, it connects, actually, it asks for connection to the server so that the server can send back information to the user. And then the user is able to see on his browser or her browser that, yeah, this is the page, right, for the example.com. So this is what DNS is doing for us and why it is important. Then when you instantiate your instance, the Azure provides you with public and private IP addresses, and public IPv4 addresses enable communication over the internet. And I have already told how exactly the IP addresses helps, right? Then we have inbound and outbound rules. So the thing is, once your instance is created, it would also create a resource group, right? So if you click on your resource group here, it will take you to the specific resource group. Okay. Yeah. So here you can see that there's a network security group, right? So just click here. And inside network security group, we would be adding in inbound rules. Okay, so let's talk about inbound and outbound rules. Now, security group acts as a virtual firewall for your Azure instance to control incoming and outgoing traffic. So inbound rules control the incoming traffic to your instance, and outbound rules control the outgoing traffic from your instance. And what I mean by this is that inbound means incoming connections to your Azure instance. For that, let's say that somebody wants to connect to your instance so that he or she can transfer the file. So that connection is coming from a third party to your instance. So that is an inbound or incoming connection. So if your server wants to connect to somebody else on the internet, so the connection is being sent from your server to somebody else. So that is outbound or outgoing connections. So to regulate that, we need to have security rules. Okay. And as you can see, or you would be able to see, you might have this SSH with you, you might have this one and this one and this one with you, right? But you also need to have another one so that your Django application is able to connect to your instance. So for that, you need to create one. And how do you create one? You just, okay, how do you create one? Are we given? Okay. Okay, so better yet, what you can do is just click on here and type in network security. Yeah. Okay, network security groups. Right, click on here. And here, yeah, all of the network security groups that were created are present here. So see which one is yours or you wanna make changes in. So for me, it is this one. Inside this, yeah, again, I would be shown the inbound rules and the outbound rules. Here we can go to the inbound security rules. Then you click on add here right? Now here you let it stay as it is, but in the source it should be any, in the port range let it be any, in the destination let it be any, in the services let it be custom. Now your port ranges should be 8000 because Django by default works on that, and in your protocol you should have that as TCP. Okay, why is it? Yeah, TCP. Then just keep the name as it, keep the name whatever you want, have a description if you want to have, and then click on add, right? So I've already have one, right? You can see this was what I created before, and yeah, then go back to your VM, right? Go back to your virtual machine. So now we have set up the virtual machine, we have set up the rules for connections, inbound connections, outbound connections, right? So we have gone over the rules also. Now the last thing is to actually set up the instance, and which would I would be doing in the next video. There I would tell you how exactly could you transfer your files from a local system to the VM. How IP address is this provided here. Just click on this to copy it, then click on paste. Yeah, paste it here. Now go to your SSH and click on plus. Go to your authentication. Now the private key would work as a password so that you are able to log in into your VM and connect to it. So browse here and go to the PPK file that you have just now created using Putigen. Click on open, then again click on open, accept it, then log in as. So as I told you, when we were creating the VM, we had a username, right? It was asking for a username, it was asking for a name to name your key pair file. So there we typed in Azure user, right? If you have typed something else, you have to put that there and then click, sorry, just enter, and it would authenticate, and then it would log in into your VM. So now you're inside your VM, right? So the next thing to do is the file transfer, which happens through WinSAP, right? So you have WinSAP, just open that, and it is taking time. So just open that, and there it would give you an option of new session, right? New site. So or an existing one, if you have created a workspace for yourself, it would showcase your workspace. So I'm just using a new site. So I've typed in my host name, port number should be 22 only, username as I told you about is Azure user, and password. So our private key acts as our password. So click on advanced, then go to authentication, just browse that file and select that file, which is the keyword private file right here. Click on open, click on login, then click on yes. So now we have also created another connection on the port 22 only, and with the help of WinSCP, now what I can do is, okay, so you can already see that my side directory is present here, but if I want, I can do stuff like this. Let's say that I want to transfer this PEM file from my local directory, from my local machine to my VM. So I can just drag and drop here and click on OK, and it would just uh, transfer the file from my local machine to my VM, right? You can even see the rights I have right now. So for the Azure user, I have this particular right, and for roots, I have all the rights, right? Let's say that you want to delete something, you just select that one and uh, click on delete button, then click on OK. It would delete that file, right? So this is how you would be able to transfer from your local machine to your VM. So what I did was just
transferred my site directory. So inside my site directory, you can see I have the project directory and my app directory. So going back, yeah, so you can just drag and drop here, right? So I've already done this. That's why it is present here. And another thing is you can even validate that. So what you can do is type in ls-a. So here you can see that I have the my site directory with me. Now I'm going to tell you some of the commands that are, yeah, some of the commands that are useful when you're setting up your VM, if it is a Linux one, right? So the first thing is to talk about the sudo command. So sudo is basically giving you administrative rights, right? Having the root user working as a root user. So let's say there are some administrative files that are present on your Linux and you want to access them. So if you directly try to access them, it might not let you do so. But with sudo command, it would let you access those files or even make changes in those files, right? The next thing is the pwd command. So that just gives you the path onto which you are right now, right? We have the home and then the Azure user. So you're inside the Azure user directory. Then I just ran a command ls-a. So A is a flag which is telling me to specify all the files and folders, subfolders inside the present directory. Then I have the nano command, which is, let's say that you want to change some stuff in your code, right? Let's say that I have to change some stuff in my code and I want to access the editor. So nano provides you the editor onto which you can use and change your code. So for example, let's say that I want to change something in my, okay, sorry, change something in my settings.py file, right? So again, I would go into my site. Now I would type in no settings.py file. So it has opened my settings.py file. So through the up and down keys, I could just go to it and see whatever is written here. So Control X would close it. And another thing is that if you can see here in my last video there was no public IP address here, it was written keyword dash IP, and that is because I had stopped my server. So each and every time you stop and restart your server, you get a different IP address as before, and this is because Azure or even AWS or Google Cloud, all of them provide you with dynamically made IP addresses that are I would say mapped onto VMs dynamically. Basically, there's like a lot of IP addresses created, then one IP address is given to you, and then that IP address is mapped to the VM you have created. So what happens is that your VM stays as it is, but your IP addresses changes again and again. So I was on 20 point something something, then this IP address gets mapped to some other VM, and that other person would be now using the different VM but on the same IP, right? So this is how they're able to dynamically use and create and specify the VMs which different people are using simultaneously, right? So that is that. But the thing is, we had already specified. Let me just show you. It would be better. .env file. So you can see I've already specified the IP address here, but that IP address and this IP address here are different, right? You can see that. So this was because the first time I instantiated, I got a different IP address and I had stopped that instance and restarted it. Okay. Okay. So just type in 20.207.194.26. So see, you have made some changes. Now if you control X, it would say if you want to save the modified buffer, click Y, then click enter, because that was asking if you want to save the file in as the same name as before. So you can, yeah, I had to. So we just click on enter, or else we would have changed the name. Now cd.dash to get outside. The thing is that even though we have our code files here, the Linux VM we are using is not properly set up. So for that, we need to have a command run that is yeah. So what I've done is that I've created a txt file to help me set up the commands or to help me store the commands and set up my VMs. So you can even look through these. Just pause the video and take a screenshot, right? And then you move back. Okay, you move back. Yeah. So just copy paste it here and run the command. So it would set up your, it would update your pip or it would install the pip first and update it, and then it would ask you to continue. If you want to continue, type in Y, right? So once this has been completed, we can start with setting up the code by working through requirements.txt to install all the dependencies first. Right. This might take some time, and once it has completed, it would again take you back to the terminal, right? And but before that, I would specify 2 3 commands which might be helpful for you if you are running instance and know that your code might create some kind of over access. Let's say that your code requires 800 MB of RAM. So would your code be able to run on this VM which has 1 GB of RAM itself? So for that, to see if it would be able to run or not, you can run some commands which would help you see the free and use memory in your system, which would help you see the disk usage for your system, right? So okay, this is taking a lot of time. Okay, so it is also showing me the time it is going to finish at and the speed at which it is going to finish at. It is downloading and installing. Okay.